Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for some of you. My name is Charles de Vilmorin, and we are about to start the webinar in about 1 minute. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Charles de Vilmorin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Link Senior, and it's a great pleasure to host this webinar today for you. A few housekeeping items before we begin. To be eligible for NAB and NCAP CEU credits, you must stay on for the webinar for the full hour. At the end of the webinar, I will provide the required post-webinar survey evaluation link in the chat box and by constant contact email message. So when you look at the GoToWebinar program that we're using to screen share, there is a chat box, and at the end of the webinar, a link will appear now. You need to fill the link to be able to receive your CEUs. We will also send a constant contact email message, and you must fill the survey no later than midnight this Thursday, December 13th, to be eligible for CEU credits. If you're not looking for CEU credits, please do fill in the survey, as we would love to hear from you and get your feedback. To give you a little bit of context, Link Senior has provided these webinars on a monthly basis since January 2018. We've had so far over 3,400 participants, and we provided free CEUs both for NCAP and NAB. This webinar series is provided as a courtesy and as a way to advance resident engagement, anyone that works in the field of activities, life enrichment, rec therapy, and wellness. Here's a quick look at some of our past speakers and people that were highlighted here. One thing that we do ask, if possible, and if you have ideas, is to please send us ideas at hdumore@linksenior.com. It's a great way for us to hear about you, what your needs are, and what kind of education you'd like to hear from us. At the end of the webinar, we will also be showcasing our lineup for the coming month, and we have great speakers for quite a few months in 2019. Just a quick background on Link Senior. We build technology, a platform to help you engage your residents. And we have a presence in 42 states in Canada, and we touch about 40,000 lives on a daily basis. We're also very proud of a study that we just completed, funded by Baycrest, to allow us to give more evidence between engagement, quality of life, clinical outcomes, and financial outcomes. Today, we're thrilled to have Jennifer Brush with us. She's an award-winning dementia educator, and I will give a little bit of background on resident engagement. And our keynote, Jennifer Brush, will provide us insights on what is Montessori and what are the components for Montessori for aging. Jennifer herself is she's a speech-language pathologist specialized exclusively in dementia care. She's also a researcher who uses physical environment as a way to improve functional in elders. Myself, as some of you might know, I started Link Senior as a passion from the older adult, and I have more than, well, now 11 years of healthcare and long-term care experience. The description of today is really about how we can use the best practices for Montessori and aging and apply that in our field, which is senior care, and help us understand the philosophy, but also how to apply it in our everyday life, and sometimes, obviously, more importantly, the everyday life of our residents. You know, one might ask, why is there a need for more and better resident engagement? I love to start these webinars by this idea that, and this is a quote from Abraham Maslow, the fact that every resident that we are lucky to have under our care is a unique person. They are all defined by a worth life of events, actions, good or bad, that define them. And until the very last days, minutes, and seconds of their life, they remain that person, no matter their physical and cognitive ability. And for us in the field of resident engagement, our role is to help them despite these challenges such as cognitive impairment or physical impairment. Dr. Giska Cohen-Mansfield once defined engagement as the way to occupy or provide a stimulus that will spur better quality of life for our residents. So this is our job. This is what we are in to do, and to do it for every and all of our residents. We know that resident engagement by itself is challenging for many different reasons. These are US statistics, which are, one, we're not many of us compared to the amount of residents that we are to serve. We also know that the bulk of our residents, of the population that we serve, for different reasons, cannot self-recreate. Sadly, the family isn't there every single day or week or month sometimes to help us engage our residents. And we often forget that we're focused on antipsychotic and we want to reduce them, but medication as a whole often gets in the way of us bringing meaningful, person-centered and therapeutic engagement. We all know that residents that are under some kind of antipsychotic, antidepressant, or sleep medication are much harder to engage. Which brings us to a very sad standard today in senior care, which is the amount of minutes of activities that a resident gets. It is 11 minutes in the skilled world, which is long-term care, and 20 minutes in assisted living. We see that as sad, but we can also see that as a huge opportunity to advance, improve the quality of life of our residents. There's a lot to be done, which is what really excites us. Now, if you look at resident engagement, what we're trying to do is very simple in itself, is we want to get to know the residents. Based on that, we want to be able to plan something for them. We want to engage them, and we want to evaluate our programs. And the big opportunity that we see is the fact that today we don't have enough tools to be able to do that. There's a lot to be said about that we want to meet the needs of our residents. I think there's also a lot to be said about how do we help them find purpose. And this is why we're very excited about Jennifer's work today and highlighting how can we augment the quality of life of the older adult, especially the one living with dementia. I think that on a broader perspective, our role is how do we create personal experiences for every and all residents. We've had more than 400 discussions this year with different professionals in different level of care, but also level of an organization. And we love to point out that engagement can be simply defined as 3 sets of questions. One is, are we engaging everyone? 2, are we engaging them based on their needs and preferences? And 3, are we thinking about well-being and outcomes? And again, Montessori applied to our field, thanks to the work of people like Jennifer, is what helps us understand how can we accomplish not only 1, but 2, and also 3. You know, we all know about the pyramid of Maslow, which is a great way of seeing things. There's also different frameworks, such as the dimensions of wellness. You know, some people have simplified that to mind, body, spirit, but there's something to be said about having an approach that is holistic and takes the whole person into account. So with that, it's a great pleasure to introduce Jennifer. And Jennifer, I'm about to give you control of the keyboard and mouse, and also turn it over to your slides.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege and an honor to be here, and I'm glad that so many of you are interested in learning more about Montessori and how we can engage elders in this really meaningful approach. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about the work that I do and about Montessori. I'm just trying to advance. There we go. Okay. So first, I'd like to start off by telling you a little bit about Crossway Community and the National Center for Montessori and Aging. I am the program director at the National Center for Montessori and Aging, and we're a very unique collaborative organization. So we have started several new programs this year that I'm excited to share with you. First is a volunteer program for elders who have dementia, and it's an opportunity for them to volunteer contributing to the Montessori school and interacting with the children at the Montessori school. And I have a research grant with a colleague of mine. We're going to be looking at the interactions between the children and the elders. And so it's an opportunity to really use the skills that elders have and to enhance the lives of children who may not have the opportunity to have that extended family anymore and spend a lot of time with older adults. We also have a learning laboratory for family caregivers. So it gives caregivers an opportunity to experience how they can set their home up in a way that's supportive for people with dementia. So in my program today, one thing I'm going to be talking about a little bit is what we call a prepared environment. So in Montessori, we create an environment that's supportive, with the goal of enabling elders to function at their very highest level possible. And along with that, I'm very interested in developing a number of how-to videos in the supportive environment, making them available as webinars and for access on the internet, so that family caregivers and professional caregivers can really walk through the environment with me and see how to set that environment up. I mentioned collaborative research. I mean, I am a researcher, and I think that research is very important to be able to show that what we do is effective. And it's good, and it's also good because it helps us to improve our programming. So we will continue to do research at the center. And all of this year, we've had a training environment for healthcare professionals. We offer a number of workshops in Montessori for aging and dementia. Our goal really is to create a supportive physical environment and social environment where elders, children, care partners, healthcare professionals can really all grow and learn together. So it's really a cross-generational program. And one of the reasons that we're doing this, and I'm sure that you all can identify with this, is that we need a dementia-capable workforce. And unfortunately, many individuals who work with elders and especially elders with dementia are just not equipped. They're not educated enough in the challenges of working with people with dementia. And most of the care is still being provided by family members, by unpaid individuals. 80% of people with dementia are living in the home. So there's a real opportunity and a need here to provide important education in dementia, with the hopes that we can have better patient outcomes, but also to decrease all of the burden and stress that both professional and family caregivers are feeling. So if you talk to families or to professional caregivers, what do you think the biggest challenge is for them in caring for someone with dementia? Well, as I can speak both as a professional and a family caregiver, and I can tell you that people say that it's very difficult to understand and deal with some of what they consider behaviors that are associated with dementia, these forms of communication, behaviors that people use as a form of communication. But what if, what would it be like if these caregivers really understood the real reason that elders become depressed or that they exit seek or walk about? What if they could learn the steps that they could prevent these behaviors? So often everyone spends their time trying to manage or extinguish them, but what if we understood them and could prevent them from happening? And instead, we can focus our time on engaging the person in a really in an engaging program that met the person's cognitive levels. So, sorry, the slides are not, there we go. So if we could provide this education to both families and professionals, we would have a care community where staff understood how to reduce or eliminate repetitive questionings. They'd have tools for communication so they could be understood better and understand people with dementia. And I really feel that Montessori for aging is a philosophy of life that really enables us to do all of these things. The research has shown that it improves staff satisfaction, that it increases elder engagement, it improves elder quality of life indicators. We see more positive affect and expression of positive emotions when we have Montessori program, and also a reduction in psychotropic medications. So Montessori for Aging and Dementia is a philosophy of living. It is not an intervention. It really is a way of living, and it combines Dr. Montessori's philosophy of education with evidence-based dementia care practices. So in Montessori for Aging, we do individualized assessments of individuals' preferences and their past roles and routines, their hobbies, their needs, and we collaborate with them and help them to engage in roles where they can participate in the community and increase their feelings of self-worth and their feelings of independence. And we also provide a number of self-directed activities that are matched to individuals' cognitive abilities. So I serve on the advisory board for Montessori for Aging and Dementia for the Association Montessori International, and I'm the only AMI certified educator for Montessori for Aging in the United States. And we developed a charter. This is what we want to see. If a community, it says that they have a Montessori philosophy, we want to see a community that's really aligned with the elders' needs and interests and abilities and strengths. We want to see an environment that's carefully prepared, that meets and nurtures the needs of each individual, with a hope that lives are really enriched through the engagement of these roles. We want people to have a sense of well-being. The Montessori philosophy believes in respecting the person. We do a lot of observation of the individual in order to learn about the person. We really step back and watch them engage with others and engage with the environment to help learn about them and about their needs. We encourage independence as much as possible. We want them to do as much as they possibly can, help them as little as possible, only intervene when they need to, and to have a community that provides meaningful work for them to do. We want, a lot of people talk about Montessori materials, but Montessori can happen anywhere. Learning and engagement can happen anywhere. You don't need special materials to do it. So if you think a minute about what you'd like to do when you are 80, sorry, the slides advanced all on their own there. There we go. Think about what you'd like to be doing when you're 80. Do you want to be sitting around all day with nothing to do, or be dependent on others, or have a life that has no meaning? Of course not. You want to continue to do all of those things that are important to you now. And just because someone develops dementia doesn't mean that those things aren't important to them anymore. Those things are still very important. And so through a Montessori philosophy, we enable those individuals to continue to engage in those things that are important to them. We want to give people a reason to get out of bed every day. And one way that we do that is through the formation of roles. So roles like helping to care for the community, for example. If you think about it, in your daily life, you have a number of roles, right? I'm a mom, I'm a teacher, I'm a wife, I'm a volunteer, I'm a caregiver. If you made a list, you'd probably write down 20, 25, 30 different things that you do in a week. So you identify who you are through the roles that you have. And if you think about the roles that elders have in your community, they might not have as many opportunities as they did to be a mentor, to be a volunteer, to be a caregiver, to be a spouse, to be a friend, to contribute to their community in a meaningful way. So that's an important part of the daily routine that we establish in collaboration with the elders, is what can they do on a daily basis that the environment supports, that's a familiar role. And part of that is providing access to all of the materials and supplies that they need. So you'll hear me say this again and again during this presentation, that supplies, materials that the individual needs for activities or roles are never put away. They're freely accessible, both visually and physically, in the environment. We offer lots of opportunities to choose what they'd like to be doing and for them to help themselves and to help others. So being able to serve yourself or someone else food or a beverage, for example, always having it in the environment. Having work that means something, that you get satisfaction out of doing. And having this work have a purpose. So for example, not just arranging the flowers for the sake of doing something to keep an individual busy, but to beautify the environment, to then put it on the dining room tables, to fold things, not just for the sake of folding, but because they are going to be used by other people in the community. So you can take a simple task like pouring juice, for example, and it helps someone to maintain and improve their attention and their concentration skills, their gross motor skills, fine motor skills, their balance, their movement, their visual perception. Plus, it gives someone a sense of self-efficacy. They're doing something for themselves and they don't have to rely on somebody else to do it for them. So these are what I consider the main components of our philosophy for aging. We have mixed abilities of elders working together. That means that we don't separate people according to cognitive impairment. We give people an opportunity to help each other and work with individuals of varying abilities and varying interests. Elders have a choice from a wide range of activity options. So we see a lot less group programming where you have everybody all together, and a lot more self-directed activity with blocks of time where they can choose what they would like to do. So during that time, one person may work on 6 different things that just take a few minutes, and someone else might work on a project that's interesting to them for 20 minutes, a half an hour, or an hour if they'd like to. They know where the material is and they're able to interact with it on their own schedule. We do have specialized activity materials for some of the activities. And Dr. Montessori believed that that movement and learning were inseparable. And we believe that freedom of movement within the care center is important, and it has many, many benefits. Often people are seated for long periods of time because of risk for falls, and we see that what happens is their physical skills really decline as a result of that. People do need to be up and moving to be able to maintain their skills. And then certainly trained Montessori staff. So this isn't just a staff member. If I work with a community to help them to implement this philosophy, we train all of the staff at the community. So again, it's not an intervention that's being applied by one person, but it's a way of living that focuses on meaningful engagement. So everybody needs to be trained to learn how to support that. The specialized materials that we do use, I really like them because they contain multiple levels of challenge. So I can use one set of materials in a variety of ways to meet several individuals' needs by changing how that activity is presented. We start with very simple activities and simple concepts, and we use those to translate more abstract ideas into very concrete form. And what we do is we create activities and roles that match the person's cognitive abilities and give them access to those throughout the day. We practice that new role or that activity with the elder until they're very comfortable in doing this. So the more they do it, the better they get at it. The more they do it, the more they're able to do on their own. So we learn through practice, right? Practice strengthens our neural networks. And they practice things until really they establish a new habit. And then we work that activity or role into the daily flow of the day, making sure that what we're doing is purposeful, okay? So someone could help set the table for meals to help contribute to the community, and that's a great purpose. Or they could play cards with another person for socialization and for pleasure, which is also a great purpose. So Montessori isn't a specific time. I see that mistake made a lot in communities. This is our Montessori time from 10 to 11. Montessori is just the way that you live. And so people are able to respond to their own needs throughout the day. Once elders practice these activities and they become habits, sometimes they just do them automatically. Sometimes they need to be invited or reminded to participate. But when they develop these routines, it really helps them to know what to expect and to be more independent. So I'll give you a really simple example. In one community where I'm working, they've made a goal that as many of the elders on the household as possible make their own beds each morning. And when they started, very few people were making their beds. Typically the care partners or housekeeping staff made the elders' beds. Okay, and so they invited the elders to join them in making the bed, helped them to make the bed, providing assistance only when they needed. And now most of the elders, as part of their regular routine, get up just like they did when they were living at home, and make their bed each day. So that's a great way to start the day, by accomplishing something like that. So the other thing we do, besides establishing these roles and routines and activities, is we create a prepared environment. And this prepared environment, the goal of it is to help the elder to be independent. So Dr. Montessori created a very specific environment for the classroom so that children could be independent of the adult. We create an environment so that the elder can be independent from the caregiver. And we do that by having a physical environment that compensates for memory loss. So we provide redundant cues, wayfinding, high contrast signs for wayfinding, things like shadow boxes, and invitations to engage. There we go. Thanks for your patience there. We provide cues that support orientation. We all have the need to be oriented, and individuals with dementia have an impairment in cognitive mapping skills very early on during the disease process. We all like to be able to know where we need to go and how to get back. So having cues that support both cognitive mapping and declarative memory are important to have in the environment. When you have appropriate cues, you also support independence. So concrete cues that let people know that they can help themselves to a drink or a snack, or having a cue that really says what it means. So instead of having a sign that says restroom with a picture of a man and a woman in a wheelchair, we use very concrete cues, such as a toilet sign, so people are very clear about what that means. The environment is ordered. Things are in trays and containers that one can take from labeled shelves and take to work on. There's signs to encourage people to engage with the material. Everything is visually organized, labeled, and has very easy access to the materials. We try and minimize the amount of glare in the environment and really maximize contrast so that items stand out from one another. It makes them clearly visible. They're easier to manipulate that way. People are more independent. We also make sure that the environment is filled with materials that are okay to hold and touch and use. People have a natural tendency toward exploration and manipulation. Dr. Montessori identified a set of human tendencies, and when we design our Montessori environments, we create an environment that meets the needs of those tendencies that we have. So people like to hold things, touch things, use things, have materials that are engaging. This is a material called a metal inset, and it is a material used for pre-writing skills and also for some creative design. And we can use this with elders for creating artwork, for working on fine motor skills, for working on attention and concentration. Sorry, the interaction between my mouse and the slides is a little funky today. Activity and work in the environment. We all need to have something to do, so we have that sense of fulfillment. She's taking care of plants, movement. We have one person that's giving beverages to everyone in the dining room and other people that are dancing. Opportunities in the environment for socialization, working and playing in small groups, but also doing things for others. So here we have a resident who is reading to another resident. And so they're forming a friendship. She's helping the other person because she's no longer to read anymore, and they're able to spend some meaningful time together. It makes both individuals feel good. Into having an opportunity for a variety of intellectual pursuits. Contrary to popular belief, learning doesn't stop just because people have dementia. People still have the ability to learn, and they still have a lot of interests. And so having things in the environment that will give them an opportunity to continue to learn and grow makes that environment rich. Access to the outdoors is something that's often restricted in long-term care, which is really a shame because being outside has so many health benefits. So we try to have a lot of access to the outdoors and also look for ways that we can bring the outside in. Sorry, this is skipping ahead all by itself. Just bear with me for a minute. I'm going to try and get back to a slide. There we go. So what we see is that when elders are supported in independence, when they have an opportunity to move, when they have an opportunity to use those skills are maintained a lot longer. When you have somebody that does something for you all of the time, it really creates a situation of disuse and disability. So our goal is to help people maintain their skills for as long as possible. And if that means that they need help and they can only do part of the task in making the bed, we'll let them do part of the task of making the bed. If they can do all of it, they can do all of it. But our goal is to help them to practice those skills. And what we're finding is we're seeing improvement in skills over time instead of a decline in skills over time. And if you think about that, that means also less staff time, less staff burden, and it really changes the quality of the time that the staff are spending with elders because it allows you to really focus on building the relationship, having meaningful time together instead of managing things that you might find negative or challenging.
Jennifer, did you want me to move the slides?
There it goes. And when, oh, can you go back one, Charles? Something,
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
sure what's going on with my mouse, but.
There you go.
So what we find is that when elders' needs are truly met, by having purposeful, meaningful things to do, the responsive behaviors that we see, so these are behaviors in response to unmet needs, they diminish. So it's really a way of preventing these responsive behaviors from occurring. And when we see the responsive behaviors diminish, we see caregiver burden and stress and assistance time decrease. Some of the best outcomes that we've seen have been statistically significant increases in staff satisfaction when nothing else in the community has changed but implementing a Montessori philosophy, because they have a much more enjoyable time engaging with the elders. So this was a very brief overview, and there's a lot more to the Montessori philosophy than this, but I wanted to just, it was great to have an opportunity to introduce it to you and give you an overview. And I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have about this approach. I really think that it's life-changing. It's a game changer. It really, it requires some culture change in your community. It requires effort to implement and to sustain. But once you do, the results are really, really worthwhile. You go from, having an environment where things are done for people, and people may spend a lot of time sitting doing nothing, to this environment where there is just so much going on because people are actively engaged in living their life. So I'm very willing to answer questions.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. I will look into the questions asked from the audience for a second. And let me start off actually with one question that I had for you. Well, actually, let me start by saying that I love the idea of this role, finding roles for individuals. And then something else that you said, that freedom is learning. I think that's essential, obviously, to Montessori, but also just the field of resident engagement. One other question that has come up at least 2 or 3 times is, how do you start? For some people, they might have a vision or a mission of their organization, but this seems to be kind of not foreign but difficult to implement. Mm-hmm. What would be the first steps that you would recommend to do that?
Well, certainly first get some training, even if it's just a few people, even if it's just one person that can start to be the mentor or the pioneer or the game changer, the inspiration of the community. Get some training so you understand about Montessori first. And then what I like to do is start very small by identifying maybe just 2 or 3 elders and getting to know them better. Part of the Montessori philosophy is doing a very detailed person-centered assessment. So we collect a lot of information about the person that then drives their engagement plan. And so pick 2 or 3 people, really get to know them well, find out what their previous roles and activities and hobbies were. And that means you may need to go talk to their family, talk to their friends, talk to people when they're visiting, find out what they enjoyed, and then work with those 2 or 3 people to come up with a way that they can either better care for themselves, care for the community, or help to care for someone else. So that could be reading to someone else. That could be getting someone else a drink. It could be setting the table at lunchtime. It could be making their own bed. And start small, because what I've found is that to get others excited, they need to see it to believe it. You can talk to them all about it, but until they witness it and experience it, sometimes it's hard to get them on board. So I really like to start with just a few people, practice that skill or that activity every single day, until they can do more and more of it on their own. And then maybe after a week of doing it, the next time that you come, you might just have to invite them to do it. Would you like to make your bed today? And they will probably, be able to just get up and do it on their own. And then you can build from there, and share your successes. Part of starting a new program is sharing those successes that you're having with others in a way that tells a new story. So you tell the story about what you'd like to see going on in the community, and that's how you get enthusiasm, increase the enthusiasm from others.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. There's also been multiple questions about service plans, care plans, and type of activities or program. Can you tell us a little bit about your work in that area and what you've seen successful and what's available out there?
So I'm going to take a guess at probably what you're asking about is how to incorporate some of these roles and activities into a care plan. So you might notice that someone's fine and gross motor skills have declined. And so perhaps you identify a role that's meaningful to the person that they would enjoy or that they've done before but might not be doing now, that involves fine or gross motor skills. And so your goal is to help to maintain or improve their fine and gross motor skills, and to perhaps improve their self-esteem and self-confidence by engaging in whatever that activity is. And then you make it part of the care plan that not only is the individual shown, so part of Montessori that we just don't have the time to get into is we have a very specific way of demonstrating and showing an individual how to do an activity, and then they follow our demonstration to learn how to do the activity again, or to learn how to do a new activity. So they're invited to join you, and then the activity is demonstrated, and then they have an opportunity then to engage, and you pull back and observe and watch, and only intervene if they really need assistance. So you're kind of pulling back and letting the person experience it for the moment. So we look at the purpose behind these activities, which is not to keep people busy, right? They all have meaning, and that's what we care plan. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you, Jennifer. You actually answered another question, which was how do we suggest implementing this for people that are more advanced in their dementia and cannot self-engage? Do you have anything to add about the particular later part, which is the idea of people that have trouble self-engaging?
Sure. In situations like that, again, you'd go back to what you know about the person. So you are choosing an activity that the person would enjoy based on their previous interests, and you make sure that it's a match to their cognitive skills. And then you may partner them with another elder who has more skills. So that elder would be doing the activity with the other person, or you might do it might be a one-on-one activity. So there are certainly ways to adapt Montessori activities for people who cannot self-initiate. Whenever possible, we give people choices, and if people are not able to express a choice, we observe them to make sure they're enjoying the interaction, and we choose something that we think is a good match based on their preferences that have been expressed either in the past or by their family.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. We've had quite a few questions about this idea of leaving items, whether it's food or not, in kind of self-service.
Mm-hmm.
Concerns about safety, concerns about people overeating and
Mm-hmm.
eating things that they're not supposed to eat.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help manage all of that?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, whenever you see people engaging in any kind of behavior like that, you need to step back and say, why is this person doing this? What need do they have that isn't being met, or what are they responding to that's in the environment? And very often we find that people engage in these types of behaviors because there's not something else to do. So when we have a robust engagement plan with appropriate activities and appropriate cues going on in the environment, and lots of things for them to do, we don't see a lot of these problems that people are so worried about. So I think in one of the slides, I had a sign that you saw that said, please help yourself to a snack. That's right on the refrigerator. We don't have problems with people going to the refrigerator and taking 5 or 6 things out and eating them all. They know that it's available. They know they can go anytime that they'd like. There's a lot of things that are going on in the environment that are interesting for them to do. And so I get these questions a lot, and it's not just about food, but about a variety of things. And I truly believe, because it's been proven over and over, that when you have a robust engagement, you do not see these what you would consider inappropriate behaviors, or they are significantly decreased.
Great. We've had also a number of questions about available kits or where to get training. And
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, I recommend, obviously we would recommend that they would get in touch with your organizations. Are there any other types of avenues to consider if somebody wants to propose that for their organizations?
Yep, there's some different opportunities at Crossway Community at the National Center for Montessori and Aging, which is in the Washington, D.C. area. One thing that is great about coming and taking a 2-day workshop there is because we have a wonderful Montessori school. So you can spend time in the school and observing the school and seeing how the Montessori environment is set up, and have an opportunity at the workshop to interact with all of the different Montessori materials, break up into small groups. There's a lot of hands-on learning. You can have training at your own care community. And then for people who can't travel, there's also on my website at brushdevelopment.com, we have an online course. We don't have, there are a lot of Montessori materials for the classroom that can be used for older adults, and that are appropriate, or materials that you can modify. There's also some great online resources, one in particular that is specially making materials for me for older adults, called Montessori Images. It's Montessori-images.com. That's specially designing reading material and other Montessori materials for elders. But I highly suggest that you don't just try and buy some materials, that you receive training first and you understand the purpose and the use and the approach to the materials. The materials are really secondary. The approach and understanding the philosophy is really what is important.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. Also, You mentioned several times that this had to be successful, this had to be a kind of organization wide initiative. And often we find that with successful program in resident engagement, the challenge is to make sure that every staff person is engaged. So for example, we've had numerous questions about how do we involve CNAs, nursing, or
Mm-hmm.
volunteers in this. And
Mm-hmm.
remember one thing, obviously, Jennifer, as you know, a lot of people on the line today are either people in the nursing discipline, but also a lot of activity directors, life enrichment coordinators, rec therapists, and so on. So any advice from these perspectives?
So first of all, that's a really hard question to answer in a short period of time. I can
Mm.
I can tell you that I spend hours on this with people.
Yep.
And we talk about this during the whole workshop for a very long time, how to do this. So it's hard for me to answer in a short, give you in a short answer. What I can tell you is that when we implement Montessori and we train everybody, it's everybody's job to look for ways for the elders to be engaged. So again, it doesn't have to be about special materials. It could be about teaching a nursing assistant a different approach to engaging someone in doing their ADLs. Okay. And so what when we often talk about programs like this and start programs like this, people think that it's going to be so much extra time and that they're just not going to be able to do this, that everybody is just swamped as it is. But you can do the same activity in if I could say, in a Montessori way or a traditional care approach way. So we do spend quite a bit of time looking at just regular daily activities that are done already and evaluating them and rethinking them and talking about how they could be done in a way that empowers the elder instead, so
Great,
that we
thanks,
can make
Jennifer.
it approachable.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Jennifer. With that, I'd like to wrap up today's webinar. Jennifer, thank you so much again for being available and providing us with so insightful knowledge. I think that what excites us when we do these webinars and when we have the chance and the pleasure to work with people like you is really recognizing that the residents that we serve, like anyone living, we should help them live with purpose. This is what the promise of our discipline is about, is providing not only meaningful engagement to meet their needs, but also help them, whoever they are and wherever they are, physically and cognitively, to live with purpose. I'm sure that a lot of you are aware we started a project a bit more than a year ago called Old People Are Cool, which is really about celebrating anyone in society, including our older adults. And it is really about, quote unquote, fighting anti-ageism and realizing, as we said multiple times on this webinar, that a person's a person no matter how old. This project also has a website called oldpeopleare.cool, where you're more than welcome to go and visit, take part of the conversation, and obviously have fun with it. In the slides, you also find Jennifer's email if you have any follow-up or interest in pursuing these things for your organization. I wanted to take a second also to welcome you to our future webinars. In January, I myself will provide a snapshot of a white paper we will be releasing on the state of resident engagement in 2019. A lot of interesting numbers and stats and where we are in this discipline. February is to be confirmed. March, we're welcoming again Dan Worsley with NCAP. And in April and May, this is something exciting, we have a two-part series about anti-ageism. The first part with Ashton Applewhite, a very famous leader in this anti-ageism movement, and she will help us understand where we are with anti-ageism and what's exciting about it today. And then Tracy Grandon on May will help us understand how we can apply that to the senior care environment and our day-to-day job. And then in September, we have Vicky de Klerk-Ruben from the Validation Training Institute coming back. This was one of our most successful webinars this year, and we're happy to have her back. If you have any suggestions or any questions, feel free to reach out. As I said before, we will be providing the link to the survey for people to not only provide us with feedback and questions, but also access to their CEUs. So again, important, I have just pasted in the chat box of the GoToWebinar software the link that you need to complete in order to receive the CEUs. Also, because we often get the questions, if there are multiple people in the room, you all need to complete the survey. This survey, this link, would also be sent by email today with a constant contact email, and they need to be completed by midnight on Thursday. With that, Jennifer, I would like to thank you again, thank everyone on the line for joining us, and thank you more importantly for helping us advance the field of resident engagement.
Thank you.
Take care, Jennifer. Bye.